Well, hello, good evening everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you guys are doing wonderful out there tonight. I've got an interesting video for you today. We're going to talk about Alone Grizzly Mountain Season 8, Episode 3. The name of this episode is Chewed Up. So we're going to start with the quote that comes on the screen, and it says, "It's not because things are difficult that we not dare. It's because we do not dare that they're difficult." Seneca. Pretty crazy quote there. So we're starting on day 7. There's 9 people left. We're talking about Biko. I really like this guy's character. He's pretty fun to watch. 50 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and he cuts the sleeves off of his shirt. And I'm thinking, why? It's gonna get colder. Like, why would you do that? But he knows himself more than I do. He decides that he's gonna finish his shelter, and his shelter is a cabin, and it looks nice. I was really impressed with his shelter. And one thing that he said that I thought was interesting was, he said, 1 year ago I was building trailers. And that reminds me of a friend of mine, James, a fellow YouTuber. So I wanted to give a shout out to my friend James. And he decides that he's going to put bark panels and boughs against his shelter. That's smart. That's going to be a wind block. It's going to be an insulation barrier. It's going to help out. So moving forward, it's 1 o'clock, day 7. 9 people left. We're talking about Clay. And I like Clay too. He's a good dude. He makes a fish bag out of his pink underwear. Now it says something on the screen that each participant, I think that says they're allowed to bring 2 pairs of underwear or something like that. Well, he had like a pair of boxers that were like extra large. Very smart on Clay's part. And he made, like I said, a fish bag. So very cool, because he can hang that fish up, you know, in this pink underwear and keep it away from predators. Very smart. Clay is out there thinking. He's very cerebral in his attempt out here. And then I noticed he was chinking his shelter. So he's putting moss basically between the logs so that the wind can't come in. And he decided that he wants to make a stone fireplace and like chimney. Very cool. And he's always thinking about his family, and his shelter looks really nice. I noticed his shelter, and it looks really nice. It looks effective for what he's out there to do. The chimney, he gave a shot of like the fire, and it looks like the chimney's drafting very good. Looks like a rocket stove or something. Very, very cool. So I'm really, really happy to see that he's doing well out there. And then I'm thinking, because there's this shot, and it's kind of showing him sitting there, and he's like in deep thought, you know, almost in a meditative kind of state. So the thought crosses my mind that I feel, this is just an opinion here, but I feel that Clay is missing his family. But let's not forget that his family basically told him, go out there and do whatever you got to do. This is temporary. So he's got that in the back of his mind, so that when these moments come where he misses his family, I'm thinking that he'll be able to suppress those thoughts of missing his family, because like I said, they've already give him the green light to go out there and do his thing. So very cool. Moving forward, we're on day 8. Again, 9 people left. We're about 8 in the morning talking about Matt. And he says, I haven't fully explored my area, my spot. So he goes out and he finds some wild onions. He harvests a good amount of wild onions, brings them back, and he decides that he's going to make a stew, you know, with some wild edibles and those onions. And he sees a small fire. You know, he's filming, he's got the camera going, and I guess an ember blew out of the fire or something, got into some grass. So he turns away, gets a stick, and of course the show goes to commercial, you know, and I'm sitting there like, dang, they always do that. They always leave you on these nail biters, and then they go to a commercial, and then you're sitting there eating your ice cream or whatever you're doing at home, and you're like, what the hell happened? You know, they're really good about that. And that's one of the things that really brings, I think, the viewers to the show, is those cliffhangers. They leave you there, you know. So the show comes back on, and he has a stick and he's putting the fire out. It wasn't that big of a deal. Moving forward, about 10 o'clock, we're still talking about Matt. He gets the fire out, like I said, and he's thankful that his spot isn't a real windy spot. I guess some of the other locations, you know, they draw locations out of a hat and it's a random thing. And I guess some of the other locations had like a lot of wind coming into them and stuff. So he's thankful that his location's not one of those that has a lot of wind. And he says, you know, after the fire and everything, he says, I'm going to have to start paying closer attention. I can't afford to have something like that happen. So very, very good on Matt for that. Moving forward, we're still on day 8. And it's a little after noon, 9 people left. Back to Biko again. He's singing. Let's not forget that he was in a death metal band. So he's got a beautiful singing voice. It's actually very nice hearing his sound. Very cool. And he says, my goal today is to get my cabin bed built. He wants to make a raised bed. So he does. He makes a really nice raised bed. He puts some boughs on it, and he decides he's going to move into his cabin. So now it's about 2:30-ish. Still day 8. 9 people left, talking about clay. He says, well, it's too windy to fish. So he decides that he's going to go out and attempt deer hunting. He explains that he's looking for long-term food procurement. He wants something that's going to be, he wants a big game animal. A deer is what he's speaking about. He wants something that's going to carry him through on this journey out here. And then he's filming around and he sees, you know, he's kind of looking down, kind of scoping out and looking for hunting potential areas. And he sees a really beautiful patch of aspen trees. And the reason I wrote that down is because aspen is a fantastic friction fire wood. So a couple of the contestants out there, I was concerned about them for not having a ferro rod. But knowing that there's aspen in the area, it kind of eases my mind that those, I think Coulter comes to mind, and I think Matt was the other one. But knowing that there's aspen, like I say, it eases my mind that friction fire might not be as difficult as, you know, if you didn't have aspen. So back to Clay, he's walking around looking for hunting areas, and he sees there's some bear scat. He sees a lot of bear activity, you know, claw marks on the aspen trees and bite marks on shrubs and stuff like that. And he's in a burned area. There's a lot of down trees. Apparently there might have been a forest fire there at some point, and he's looking at all this, and it reminds me of west of Flagstaff, Arizona. There's a place that I go to out there on Highway 180. So you leave Flagstaff and you go west like you're going to go to the Grand Canyon. That highway, 180 I think it is, or 160, something like that. Anyway, you're heading west, heading toward the Grand Canyon, and there's some nice aspen trees on that road. And there's one area on the west side of the San Francisco Peaks. That's the highest mountains or the highest elevation in the state of Arizona. But it's on the west side of the mountains. There's a bunch of downed trees. and there was a fire there at some point, and the scenery that Clay is showing reminds me so much of that area that I'm talking about, west of Flagstaff. And he sees no deer, no signs of deer, and now he's starting to worry a little bit about the situation because he's aware very clearly about his body type. He says, I know my body type, and I know that it's not the type that holds weight. So there's a bit of concern, which is awesome, because when you don't have that concern, there's nothing to raise your bar or to raise your performance levels up. So I think that because Clay's aware of that, either one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to end up with a medical pull or a tap out, or he's going to take it seriously and kick ass and go do everything that he needs to do as far as fishing, hunting, snaring, and all that, knowing that he needs those calories. So I'm very anxious to see what is going to unfold on the show. He sees a grizzly bear as he's hiking back to his shelter area, and he's like 12 yards away from this grizzly. Very crazy. The bear saw him, and Clay did the right thing. He's like, hey bear, and he's very assertive in his tone. The bear left and went away. So very cool. And then he also said something to the effect that bears are kind of like people. They have different personalities. You know, if you have a bear that's cool, you know, he might walk away. You have one that's a jerk, he might present problems, especially if you have a mama bear protecting her cubs. That could be problems. So moving forward, we're on day 9, about 10 o'clock in the morning. There's 9 people left. We're talking about Jordan, and there's an annotation on the screen that says it's 56 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Beautiful day. He's gonna bathe today. He said he's kind of smelling or whatever. He decides to take a bath in the lake. The water's cold, and it's funny because he gets naked, of course, to take a bath, and then after that cold of water, he says, you're not gonna need to blur that out very much. He's referring to shrinkage. I thought that was funny. You know, he's got a sense of humor, and he's giving us good television to watch. And he continues working on his cabin, and his cabin looks nice as well. So we're moving forward on day 9, about 2:45-ish. 9 people left. We're back to Biko again. And he says, I'm not having luck with fishing. So he decides he's going to try to hunt. But to scope out the potential for hunting, he decides that he wants to swim in the lake, about 1/4 mile to this other place where there's these trees, deciduous trees, you know, trees that have the leaves fall in the fall. So he wants to swim over there, and the water is beautiful. So he made a comment. I think he said something like the Caribbean, I think was the term that he used, that the color of the water is reminiscent of the Caribbean. And it is. It's like a beautiful turquoise blue. That water is beautiful. I mean, and I think it was him that said something to the effect that I wish I could eat all these views. They are so beautiful. I think it was Biko that said that. I really like his character. So the annotation comes on the screen, and it says the water temperature is 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And he says, you know, hey, what about hypothermia and stuff like that? He's aware of this, so it's good. He's smart. And for those of you, you know, there's an annotation that says hypothermia is when your body temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So Biko decides he's going to swim. And he has the GoPro mounted, and he gets some cool underwater shots of the lake and stuff, and you know, being aware of hypothermia, and I think not to pick on him at all or discount him in any way, because I love Biko, but I think that he's going to be okay on this swim, and that's because he's got more body fat. You know, he's got that insulation factor on his body, so I think he's going to be fine. So he makes it to the other side, and he finds a couple berries, and he's eating these berries or whatever. And the water's beautiful blue color. He decides that he's going to go back to camp, that area wasn't really worth it. You know, the scout ended up not being that good of a idea, I guess, on his part. And he says that this was a total waste of calories. So I give him props, I give him tons of credit for putting it out there and keeping it real with the viewers. You know, he's not playing it off like, hey, you know, I'm super survival. Or, no, he's like, yeah, that probably wasn't a very good decision. You know, and I give him props for that. I think that was very cool. Moving forward, still day 9. It's about 5 something-ish in the afternoon. 9 people left. We're talking about Rose. She decided she wanted to bring in some calories. Of course, let's not forget, we are on 9 days of being out there since drop. So everybody is thinking about food. Everybody's starting to get hungry and stuff like that. So she decides she wants to do some fishing. So she makes a fishing pole, very nice. And she took her snare wire and twisted the snare wire and made these loops for her fishing pole. You know, I thought that was really cool. And she made a lure, and she decides to go fishing, and she can tell that she's already starting to lose weight. So there's a little bit of concern there. Moving forward, it's about 7:52. It's dark at this point. She hears a noise. She's in her shelter, and she hears a noise. It's a bear. It's a bear, and she pulls out this device, and at first I thought she's got the radio, she's going to tap. But it wasn't. She pulled out her bear banger and deploys this bear banger. It's a loud bang sound. About 8 o'clock, she hits the bear banger and the bear leaves. She says, I'm not scared, but I'm cautious. So that's cool, you know, very cool. Now we're moving forward, day 10, 7:51 in the morning, 9 people left, talking about Michelle. There's an annotation on the screen. It says it's 35 degrees outside. Let's remind ourselves that freezing is 32 degrees. So it's barely above freezing. She has a small island, and she's doing this little shot, and I noticed behind her, over her left shoulder, I'm wanting to say, there was a island back there in her little area that was kind of neat. I noticed that. Why am I talking about that? No particular reason. I just thought it was something worth noting. I thought it was interesting. You know, because I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking I'm the kind of person that likes exploring and stuff. If I had been in her location, maybe somebody like me might have wanted to go check out that island. I don't know. Even though it's a small island, there's probably nothing there. So she's been eating cow parsnip, and she's been using the tube of the parsnip for a fire blower. Very, very smart. She doesn't have to get as close to the flames. She's like 1.5 feet away now, and able to really direct that air right into the coals and bring that thing back to life. So very cool. I was excited to see that. Very smart and thinking out of the box, you know. She decides that she wants to try fishing. So she's down there fishing. Now we're moving forward. We're still on day 10. 9 people left. 3 something in the afternoon. Talking about Matt. He says, I'm feeling a little lonely. And he's kind of talking to the camera, and then he locks target with something with his eyes. Something catches his eyes, and he like turns into a robot and gets real still. He sees something. It's a bear on the other side of the lake. Good vision, you know, good vision. He can see that thing. And he decides that, you know, he's documenting this bear, and he gets a close-up shot of it as far as he could. You know, it's on the other side of the lake, but he gets some good footage of the bear. And then I noticed something. He's back at his shelter, and I noticed that he did something very smart. He had a secondary kind of structure set up. I'm not going to say it was a shelter, but it was a teepee type structure around a campfire. Thought that was smart, because that will keep the fire from going out. It'll keep it somewhat dry as long as he keeps the flames fairly small and the fire don't get too big and burn that structure down. But I thought that was really smart. To, you know, like I say, if it rains, it's going to be pretty good chance that his fire will stay alive. So I thought that was cool. He decides that he wants to go hunting. So he picks up his bow and he starts cursing. He's like, oh, beep, beep, beep. And it's like, the mouse chewed my bowstring. And then there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says something to the effect that I forget what do they call them, little fluffy ball things, the silencers or whatever that are on a bow. Mice chew that material, and they use it for nest. So the mouse was probably eating all that and taking it home, and then decided to just chew through the bowstring. That would be frustrating out there. That would really bring down your morale, something like that happening. For us watching here and sitting at home and we're nice and comfortable, probably not that big of a deal. But when you're out there and like one of your biggest tools for procuring food is tampered with, that would piss you off. So he's like, dang it, because he knows the importance of his bow. And I'm sitting here, the first thought that I had was, is he going to make a new string out of paracord? But he doesn't. He ties a knot in the string and repairs his bow. He goes out and he pulls it back a few times to test it, and it looks like he's got the problem fixed. So it's about almost 8 o'clock, and he says today was a mentally and emotionally hard day. They're on day 10. If you've never been out that long, maybe you don't know how that feels. Being out like that really does, something little like that will be like a big deal when you're out there, because when you're not bringing in enough calories and your brain function's starting to slow down, you get emotional. It's very, very weird. So moving forward, we're on day 11. It's a little after 1:40-ish in the afternoon. 9 people left. Talking about Michelle. She said she's not been this long before without having her hair washed or a bath or something like that. And she's kind of looking at the camera and kind of looking at her hair, and and that's true. You're out there. She says that her stomach isn't feeling right. Something's not 100%. Something's off. She decides to work on the door of her shelter, which her shelter's really nice. And once she gets that wall shored up, it's going to be really nice. So she's working on the door of the shelter, and she's kind of feeling nauseous. She got up and got kind of lightheaded a little bit. And she says, I feel like throwing up. And then it moves forward to 8 o'clock that night. And she says, I think I might have ate something bad. She thinks that what she has been eating is cow parsnip, but she wonders if it was actually water hemlock. Then there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says, water hemlock is one of the most toxic plants in North America, and it closely resembles cow parsnip. Its toxin attacks the central nervous system, causing violent convulsions and even death in some cases. So that's pretty crazy. So she does something very smart. She gets into her fire, gets a small amount of charcoal, and induces the charcoal. She eats the charcoal. And that's good, because if there's any toxins in her stomach, it'll adhere to that charcoal. And I get the feeling that, I'm looking at her, and I get the feeling that she's frustrated, which is, who wouldn't be in that situation? So let's move forward. Day 12, a little after 5 o'clock in the morning, we have 9 people left, and we're still talking about Michelle. And very interesting, because she says, I slept good. I slept okay. And I woke up in an intense sweat. And I don't know if she mentioned she was having a fever or not, but she decided to go outside and take a layer of clothing off and cool her body. She says, I feel weak. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, please let her be okay. I hope this doesn't result in a tap out, because I really like her. She's a tough character. Moving forward, it's a little after 7 in the morning. She decides she's going to go get some water. And that's smart too, because that will help dilute whatever might be in her system. She says, getting up and moving I just feel off. It doesn't feel right. But then later on, she says she's starting to feel better now. And she says, I was close to tapping. And then she kind of explains, there's nothing worth, facing those kind of risks out here in this environment. It's not worth it to put yourself in a position where you could die or have permanent damage or something like that. So moving forward, 7:47 in the morning, still on day 12, 9 people left. Talking about Jordan again. He says, I need calories. He wants fish. He goes fishing. He has a fishing pole as well. And he had to shut down his contracting business to come out on the show. So he's kind of contemplating on if that was a good decision or not. If he doesn't win the show and he goes back and business isn't booming because he shut down his contracting business. He's got all these thoughts going through his head. And then bam, he nails a bull trout, gets a fish, and he's happy. He knows he's going to eat tonight. And there's an annotation that comes on the screen at that point. It says something to the effect that this bull trout, and it was a good sized fish, like the length of his arm. It says something to the effect that this fish will probably provide him for food for about 3 days. So I thought that was really cool. Good on Jordan for catching that fish. Moving forward, it's still day 12, 9 people left, a little after 11:45. Talking about Clay. Very smart here. He says, I want to make a refrigerator. He had about a pound of berries, cranberries, I think he said, that he had picked. And he doesn't want them to go rancid. And he made kind of a joke that he might make alcohol and get drunk off of it or something. I think he was joking, but it was comical, gave us some entertainment value. But he's digging a hole down by the water. And his idea is to put those berries in there so that the temperature of the earth, being close to the water, is going to be cooler, and it's going to keep that food cold. I thought that was very smart of him. He's not going to risk these things going bad. Very, very smart. So he digs this hole, puts a layer of wood around it, puts moss on the bottom, puts the berries in, moss on top, and then buries it. The only thing that I worried about when I saw that scene is I didn't see, or at least they didn't show, and I'm not saying he didn't do this, because we only see this much of what they film. They film this much, and we see that much of their whole story. So from what I saw, I wonder, did he put a rock over that or something? I mean, maybe that wouldn't even be that effective. So I might be worrying about nothing. I'm thinking if a bear comes up, he'll throw that rock out of the way anyway. But I'm just thinking about that. Maybe a pile of rocks over it or something, make it a little... I don't think the bears are going to go after if it's too much work. But then again, on the flip side, that would be calories for him to do that. So maybe he's making this better decision. But he put these berries in the hole and put moss on top of them. That did raise a concern to me. But I don't know. I would have probably put a rock there. And I would have probably came back the next day and the rock was thrown out of the way and my berries were gone or something. So I'm not knocking Clay at all. Moving forward, we're still on day 12. Still have 9 people. A little after 2 o'clock. We're talking about Jordan. And he's doing a funny little skit. And he's doing like a fishing show. Not a fishing show. A cooking show. And he's got like this British accent or some East accent. And he's like, we're going to make bull trout head soup. And he's got his little billy pot there. And I like the tripod that he made over the fire. He had this nice tripod and he had a little hook. And he hung his billy pot over the tripod. And he was making some fish head soup. And then the last shot, he's down by the shore. And he's eating some of this trout skin and head and stuff like that, the meat off of the head. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. It was a good episode. So I want to say thank you guys for joining me today on this video Alone Season 8, Episode 3. I hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Please feel free to drop comments down below. I love reading them. I appreciate you watching. If you like the kind of videos that you're seeing on my channel, please hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. I would love to have you. I appreciate you guys watching my Alone series. I'm noticing that they're getting fairly good traction. So thank you guys for that. Much love, much respect. And with all that being said, again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. I love you all. Have a good night. Bye for now.